Cricket media used to be pretty simple. Find your favourite newspaper, head to Cricinfo, and maybe a blog you like. Now just finding the best stories and writing is a huge challenge. You already have a job. You just want to read about cricket. Well, that is what the best of cricket is currently doing. They go out daily to find the newest cricket coverage and the best stories from any publication in the world. And when they can't discover what they want, they also hire some of the best writers to produce their own great stories. You can get the best of cricket via their website or on WhatsApp. They find cricket's best stories and give them to you every day. Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Scoreboard. Well, I don't know what I expected today. Actually, I do know what I expected. I expected the game to be tied with Mohammad Siraj running out Virat Kohli. So we didn't quite end up there. But there were times when it looked like Australia was absolutely going to win this easily. There was a time when you thought India was more likely to win than Australia. There was a moment at which Australia was 27-1 on Betfair. And then Australia took a bunch of wickets in the final session. It was a very entertaining day and a very odd day of Test cricket. If you've got any questions, probably best is going to be Super Chat today. And I say this because I might actually fall asleep during this. So if you're desperate to ask something, Super Chat is the best way to go. But let's start with the scoreboard and have a look at the day's play. We've got heaps of slides today as well. I say let's start with the scoreboard. There we go. Now we're going to start with the scoreboard. Just on Jasper Bumrah, who obviously took Nathan Lyon today. This is the highest match factor in a year for a fast bowler, minimum of 50 wickets. As you say, Imran Khan's line 82. I should do a video on that one time. Ridiculous. You got Terry Alderman as a specialist in England, and Dale Steyn, McGrath, and Anderson there. And you got Hadley just behind him. It's a good list to be on. There's some very good bowlers here. 86% better than the other seam bowlers in this year. But as has been Jasper Bumrah. 86%. Handy. Just having a look at the full shot percentage today, it does show you how weird this innings was from India. So they had a 30% full shot percentage in their first 10 overs and survived. And then it dropped down to 20 and actually further on. And eventually you could see how flat it got. And they didn't really produce that many false shots at all, which it might not have felt like in that last session. But just having a look at this is how this test went. You can see just how new ball dependent. Again, and we said coming in, this wicket is a lot like the Gabba. The Gabba was very new ball dependent. This one, slightly different wicket the way it played. But again, new ball was where it was at. But you could see that by the way that India played, if nothing else, this in the fourth innings, it looked like this was the flattest that the wicket had been. Certainly, we never had a period as prolonged where teams were in control as much as India were throughout this section in here. When it comes to false shots, none of that mattered in the end, but just worth having a look at. And this is false shots per dismissal by innings. So you can see here 16%, 13%, and 16%. So these are a little bit. All of these are within the range of normal. 7.46% false shots per dismissal is very, very low. So 12 to 14, depending on the pitch and the surface and what's actually happening, is normal. So you would say in the first innings, Australia did well. India struggled a little bit in the second innings, but struggled compared to them, but that's still above normal. Again, Australia did okay in the last innings. Remember, these two especially might have a little bit higher because there were some tail-enders there. And they generally, even when they make runs, have a higher false shot percentage. But you can see that in the last innings, India's, it regressed absolutely to the mean there and meant that they were in control but losing wickets at a rapid rate. This is the average by innings for overs 1 to 35 and then 36 to 80 in this test. So you could see that the new ball in the first innings, largely down to Constas's knock, and then Marnus batting really well off the back, and Marnus was one batting well off the back of that. But really Constas knocking the stuffing out of India. But it was a new ball dependent wicket. And then with the old ball, it wasn't so much that it was hard to take wickets. You could take wickets. They just came very slowly, and teams didn't score as much. And so it was always going to be a bit of a slog for Australia to get through that once you got past their new ball. But let's talk about Indian batters, because that's probably where everyone wants to that's where everyone wants to have a look today. So Rohit has made 31 runs and Bumrah has taken 30 wickets so far in this series. The expected average on the Rohit ball, my guess is pretty low, because it was quite a full ball that still seemed quite a bit. And I think what he would have seen is a full ball and thought to himself, here's my chance of knocking this down the ground and making some runs. Having said that, he then got a very healthy edge that flew, and he was dropped before he was caught. It's like, in any way you look at this, it was a good ball and a lucky catch and everything else. But again, Rohit looked absolutely fine coming in. I thought he batted better than Jaiswal, and then suddenly he was gone. Which seems to be, not always the story with Rohit. This is Rohit's 10 test rolling match factor. So you can see that from his 20th test through to really, there's a bit of a dip here, but really until he's almost his 60th, for 40 tests, just absolutely dominating, playing brilliant cricket, quite often on really, really tricky pitches. This is the sort of pattern you would see with a player generally that would make you suggest that they're just old and they're finished. The only thing I would add to this is these last 6 tests or so are basically where the main dip has come. So he was still absolutely fine all the way through this area, even if it looks low compared to when he was balling and smashing everyone everywhere. This is absolutely fine, and you would take it. Like, for instance, that is a match factor of 48% better than the other batters in that lineup. This one over here is still 25%. Both of those, one of them is great and the other one is fantastic. It's a big drop down to what we've seen of recent times, though. There's going to be conversations. There's going to be a lot more conversations now they've lost that test. This is balls per dismissal playing attacking versus defensive shots in 2024. We could see here, this is fascinating actually, that Rohit is averaging, is going out every 27 defensive shots, not today. And Virat is going out every 31 defensive shots. That is epically low. Rishabh Pant's right down here as well. His is a bit more normal because the two numbers are similar to each other. But you can see with all the other players, they're defending, 86 balls, 108 balls, 62, 66. It's quite interesting that both of those players are quite low. Oh, also, this tells you one of the reasons why Rishabh Pant plays the way he plays. He doesn't quite trust his defense, and I think he's kind of right to as well. This is KL rules dismissal. I think it's one of those things, isn't it? You spend your whole time watching Jaiswal play a miss. You go out to bat. You try and play inside the line, probably leaving that ball. It seems back in, takes the edge, and you're gone. What a pain in the butthole. And this is a Virat Kohli's one. The minute start came on, I just thought to myself, oh, he's going to chase one. I think the expected average on that ball, like, it's quite wide. It's in the slot. It wasn't doing anything. I don't think it seamed or anything. Would be really, really high. I think it would be over 50. It just shows you where he is at the moment. His hands are outside his head. His feet really have come straight down the wicket rather than going towards the line. Doesn't mean that all those things have to be always in alignment. But I think was it one of the earlier tests, we might have done some analysis on him as well. So if you have a look at this, some of these balls, I think he would be better off just, if they're going to be that wide, just slashing them. And he keeps trying to play with a straight bat. It's been successful for him all the way through his career. Like, I get it. Don't get me wrong. But, it wasn't successful. This is the economy rates for opposition bowlers versus India by innings in 2024. There's nothing that remarkable here other than the fact that they've been a pretty fast-scoring team all the way through the year. And they do, in the fourth innings, as you would expect, slow down quite a bit. Which is why we had a look at it. So this is my mistake. This should be a line graph. But Australian bowlers averages versus right hand versus left hand. So we've talked about the 3 wickets. So they're 33 for 3 at that point at lunch. And my only thought was that they now had 2 left-handers at the crease, and they were, what, 12 overs or 8 overs, whatever it was, away from that sort of magical 35 over mark that we've been having a look at all the way through. And that this was not a team that is particularly good against left-handers. So the guy in the last 2 years with a great bowling average against left-handers for Australia out is Hazelwood. He wasn't there. So Cummins, 24 versus right, 30 versus left. Stark, 28 versus right, 32 or 31 and a half. Boland, 28, 43. And even Lyon has been better against right-handers recently than left-handers. I mean, there's not much in it, but for an off-spinner, that's quite interesting. That was the partnership. In fact, them and then the Jaiswal and Washington partnership. Those were the 2 partnerships where I was like, they've got a slight advantage here with the condition of the ball and how the pitch is playing and everything else. And they didn't lose a wicket in that second session. I think I might have said on the Morning Glory, I thought they'd go okay if they could get past that 8 over mark. I didn't really expect no wickets. It was a really good session of cricket considering everything else that has gone on. Have I put that in the wrong spot? Oh, okay, we'll go to Jaiswal first. I thought this was fascinating, the wicket, and it's worth talking about it. I had bet on Australia, and so this wicket was massively important to my bet at this point. And I was watching it going, that is definitely out. Like, it looked out live. I was shocked that it wasn't given out by the umpire. And then afterwards, more shocked when Snicko showed whatever this wave is, right? It's certainly, Snicko is not showing here the sort of mark that we are used to. And so I just assumed, oh, well, that's it. Jaiswal's going to go on to win the match here. I've done my money. And boohoo, next game, here we go. But we didn't have on the world feed I was watching the third umpire. So I didn't realize that the umpire had said there was deviation. I watch so much cricket, as you guys know. I would say this is a 50-50 call. Because the umpire gave it not out, and because Snicko didn't show anything, I would say about 50% of umpires, even though there was a deviation there, would still be tempted to give this not out. It's maybe not 50. It's probably a 70-30 call. But I've seen so many times before an umpire go with the standing umpire and the Snicko, even though it was a clear deflection. That is what I expected to happen. And because I didn't have the third umpire's voice in my ear, I was just watching it going, okay, he's not going to give this out. It's given out, and then you see the Hawkeye information afterwards, where there's just a massive deviation that I know Melbourne has pretty big flies, but I don't think even a fly in Melbourne could have deviated the ball the way that it went there. This is kind of the third umpiring decisions I would prefer to have made. I would have liked a little bit more angles, but again, this shows that Hotspot and Snicko is a combination that we need. Just one or just the other isn't always going to work. But yeah, it was fascinating. And of course, the game has probably turned on that decision, and it could have easily gone the other way. The same as the Jaiswal LBW earlier. I thought that was a plum one. On the field, I would have given that out 9 times out of 10 if I was an umpire. Given not out, and then, marginally umpires call. That's the game of cricket. But Jaiswal, I'm really, really pleased to see him play this kind of innings, because it shows it's a bit like watching a fast bowler pull back and take wickets, where he started so poorly. He was in a confused headspace a couple of times throughout this innings. He didn't know how hard to go and everything else, but he's ended up playing a really, really good knock here. And you can see just like his strike rate 16.9 in that first session. And then he's fine and striking the ball fine at the end. He probably had that one point in the third session where Constas was close to him at silly point, and he was trying to hit him away. Unless you're actually worried about being caught, I always thought that was a really odd thing to do. And I've seen players do this a lot. And if I was working with the team, I would probably just say to him, chances of you being caught at silly point are really, really low. And if they move silly point out, you've got another fielder in the ring that you need to pierce. And unless you're terrified that you're playing in a way that the ball might go there, I would leave him in and just play normally. But a lot of players don't do that. And it's one of the reasons that you know, I mean, Kyron Pollard in T20 games bringing in silly point. He's not thinking the ball's going to be caught there, is there? He's doing it because to get in batters' heads. This is his 50-plus scores. His actual strike rate today ended up at 40. So we've got another one there in Chennai, and another couple at 60. But it's more that first part of the innings where it wasn't even 40, where I just was really, really impressed with the way he went today. Even if, just to go back to this, it's like the expected average on this ball must be like 150, 100. It's a short ball down the leg side. It's probably Cummins' worst short ball. Chances are, if you get bat on this, generally, it just goes past the keeper. Most of the runs would be probably dragged down between fine leg and the keeper along the ground. It's not a good ball. And so that you know, and we'll come to the other one that was probably even worse in a second as well. And just Jaiswal this series. I think after what happened at Perth with all this in the middle, I think it's really good for him to just to knock the ball around twice in difficult match situations as well. Rishabh Pant, 100-plus balls in the test innings. This is such a fascinating one to look at from an analysis point of view because he actually did some really, really good stuff in this innings. The way he batted, the way he thought through problems. I thought he was seeing the ball really well. I kind of expected him when he first came out to go out dragging the ball on, trying to either chop it really aggressively through backward point or even slog to the leg side and drag the ball back onto his stumps. I think there was one shot where he dragged it down. I can't remember even where it went in the end, but he dragged it down. And other than that, he actually played really, really well. And we just haven't seen innings like this from Rishabh Pant before, right? Like this is the lowest strike rate by a considerable distance from him. It's a really good sign for India. No one cares about that at the moment because he got a half tracker from Travis Head and tried to hit it over a 6'5" guy on one of the longest boundaries of all time. It's, you know, it's a weird situation because I think at that point, a lot of people are like, oh, they're playing for a draw and he's played the shot. I think at that point, they were thinking that there was still an outside chance of a victory, but they weren't exactly going for it either, were they? You get a half tracker from a part-timer, you try and put it away. Realistically, I think if he was asked about it now, he'd probably just be like, I should have hit it as hard as I could along the ground. You know, I don't know what the expected average of this one was, but, you know, it wouldn't have been very high as well. It's just a really poor ball that deserved the punishment and ended up not only just being a wicket, but opening up the game, right? That was the most important thing. And then was Nitesh, who was out next. He just looked stiff when he came out. Like, it could just be tiredness. It could just be, you know, long series, not having used to it. But he just looked a little bit stiff and slow. And so he sneaked off to line. I thought he played the line beautifully. This ball, I think it bounced 42 centimeters higher than it normally would have. So it should have come in here-ish. No, that's wrong, isn't it? Because it was there, so it's there. So it should have come in around here. And it's bounced up to here. That is close to unplayable. And I think I said something on the Discord group, our Discord channel, about how I thought this was a pitch that was very hard to start on. And specifically, that is one of the few balls today that played up, you know, as we showed you through the data. It wasn't really a terrible day for batting, like we had seen with some of the other games in days in this series. But that particular ball was the most unplayable of the day. I don't know what the expected average of that was, but most of the runs on the expected average of that ball are going to be edges over the keeper's head or first slip's head. Maybe third slip if you're batting well. And then we had this one, another DRS one that I thought live looked really, really out. And then with the review, I wasn't so sure. And then the umpire gave it out. I think they showed a replay later. And this, everyone knows how annoyed I am with these third umpire things. You see it, and you're not 100% sure with the information that you have seen on the screen that should be given out. And then they show something later that shows that it definitely was or wasn't out. Does my head in. Either the third umpires have not been trained to get the information correctly, or it's just there's something missing in the process over and over again. Anyway, that one was gone. We then had Bumrah, who was probably sick and tired of saving India again, and then the last wicket of the LBW. That's it for the scoreboard. If you've got any questions, please get them in. Best of Cricket, I'm sure if you signed up to Best of Cricket, they will have just an absolute metric shit ton of articles on this series tomorrow. They've got also, I think they've got quite a few here also on the South Africa-Pakistan test, which I sadly slept through. I think we finished our live yesterday and it was on, and I had a look and I was like, Pakistan hasn't taken any more wickets yet. I'm just going to go to sleep instead. And then when I woke up, I was like, I really should have watched this. So that was a pain in the butt. I'm free to watch Zimbabwe, Afghanistan today. I don't know if anything's happening there, but last time I checked, nothing was happening in that game. Well, nothing except for runs. But bestofcricket.substack.com. If you are coming to this channel and you haven't subscribed there, you made an error in your life. You can get it via email. You can get it via WhatsApp. Articles sent to you each day. They've also got here. Oh, this is a video that me and Varun did a while back about the old-timey T20 which is we basically went through players who never played T20 cricket to work out the best players to play T20. So I did a video ages ago where I looked at different players who weren't thought of as potential T20 players and how they would have played it. This time, as you can see by the picture here, we went from players who we thought would be very good at T20 cricket, and then using advanced stats and, you know, a little bit of magic and a little bit of bullshit and spit, we came up with numbers that we thought that these players might have done compared to their test records and their ODI records in some cases as well with Viv Richards. So head over to bestofcricket.substack.com. Not only will you not miss out on anything I do, you won't miss out on all the other great stuff that everyone else has. We're going to have a break, and then when we come back, we'll be hitting up the what is it? The super chats, and then we'll have a look if there's any other chats as well. I'm Jared Kimber, and we'll be back in a moment with more of me talking, but, you know, answering your stuff as well. You know, the best of talking.
As a cricket journalist, I would travel sometimes up to 200 days a year. I loved watching cricket games. I loved going to new countries. It was an absolute dream. But there was one thing I hated more than anything else about it, and it was this little pin. The thing that I need to change my SIM card in every new country. The absolute worst thing about this pin and SIM cards is when I was traveling to the West Indies, of having to arrive in every new island or country and having to work out if I could still find this pin and then line up and get my SIM card in every single airport. Well, now we have the answer thanks to Sally. They can make it so you never have to worry about this nonsense ever again. They use an eSIM app that once you install once, it is easy, simple, and cheap. Oh, and it works in more than 160 countries. And you can throw these pins away forever, because now you just need to download the Sally app before your trip. And if you do it with our code, Good Areas, you get an exclusive 15% discount on Sally eSIM data plans. So before your next holiday or work trip or any time you have to travel to another country, download the Sally app and use the code Good Areas, or one word, at checkout, and you can travel like a pro with Sally.
All right. Cut the cord. Oh, here we go. He's Varun's all over it this morning. Gaurav says, is it mentally tough to shut down shop? Is it mentally tough to shut down shop completely when batting for a draw? That explains Pant and Jaiswal's dismissals. Just couldn't control their instincts. To be fair, they had controlled their instincts. Look, it's not easy. If you go back to the sort of AB de Villiers, Faf du Plessis thing, if you're on a wicket that kind of allows that, which is there's nothing happening at all, and you can just dead bat the ball, I actually think that is a really easy thing to do once you've made that decision. I'm a very attacking batter, and I've done that like 2 or 3 times in my life for, you know, to get a result for a side. And I found that very easy. What I found tougher was what we saw today, which is when there's a little bit something in the wicket, you're still making runs. The other team isn't even bowling with very attacking fields, and you're kind of batting normally, and you bat normally. I think in Rishabh Pant's case, he saw a half tracker and he went to smash it away. The only thing, as I said in the video, is hitting it in the air. Probably looking back on it, it'll be just like, why? I didn't need to do that. Like if I'd smashed it and I picked the gap, I still get a 4. So I think that was a mistake. In Jaiswal's case, I think Cummins had bowled a couple of good short balls before that. He knew there were more coming, and he got the bad short ball and went to hit it away. So in some ways, it's the one that wasn't going to get him out that got him out. but it was the others that set that up. I don't think he felt comfortable blocking, ducking, leaving. I don't think that's his main skill set against the short ball from what we've seen of him so far. And so he went with the other option, and that has got him out. But it is not an easy thing to bat in that particular situation, I find. But also, they did bat for an entire session. Like, they were the ones who set up the game. No one else really batted all that long other than Washington, right? They were the two guys. Like, it's easy to be hypercritical because they've lost the game. But it's also worth remembering who were the only two that actually stayed in. And for a while, as I think India was shorter than Australia with the bookies for a little while there. Australia got out to 27-1. Like, that was on the back of those two guys. They were 33 for 3 when they got together. Jaiswal was in all sorts early on. So I think you do have to take it both ways. But I do think they were both batting defensively. And it is kind of amazing that they've both gone out playing attacking shots after probably two of the most defensive innings they've ever played. Roll says, it's incredible how Travis Head manages to haunt India even when he makes one run in the test match. I don't know if you saw the footage, but he was talking to someone after, it might have been Isha, about the game. And he was like, yeah, I took the game off. I decided not to bat a ball or something along those lines. Had a week off. He's not a bad off spinner, to be fair. Like, I think Australia's problem is that he is an off spinner and they have Nathan Lyon. They would much prefer Travis Head to be left arm orthodox, right, or a wrist spinner, and be of the same talent. So they don't always need to use him. But in this particular situation, I've talked about that a little bit in the feature video, which will be up on the main site. It was kind of the perfect situation that they had two off spinners and they had left-handers, and they didn't have that many other bowlers. So they were perhaps bowling him for the over rates. They were perhaps bowling him just because the second new ball was coming, but him being an off spinner also put that in a situation which allowed them to attack a little bit more with the fields and everything, even if the actual wicket was from a dirty, stinking long hop. Thurb says, would Javagal Srinath make it to this Indian team? Yes, he would be taking the new ball from the other end. Also, do you think Siraj is a better bowler than Srinath? I think his peak is higher, but his floor is nowhere near Srinath. Srinath was a really good, consistent bowler. I don't think he's one of those bowlers, and you could probably put him up there with Andy Caddick, Darren Goff. I'm trying to think of some others as well. Perhaps even someone like maybe Danny Morrison. I think all those guys were very good bowlers, but they were very good bowlers in an era where there were great bowlers elsewhere. And so they didn't take the wickets that sort of turned everyone's heads. I'd love to go back. I'm just trying to see if I can bring it up here. I'd love to go back and see what Srinath's record was outside of Asia. So in Oceania, he didn't take that many wickets, actually, 35 at 42. He was good in Asia and absolutely destroyed in Zimbabwe and South Africa. And where's his England numbers? It's okay in England. Yeah, he only played 3 tests in England. I wished he would have played more. I was a big fan of Srinath. And I think in this lineup, he would be perfect to take the new ball with Bumrah. And then you have Siraj as the potential, bowler of doom. And then on the bad days, you don't have to use him all that much. Or you don't have to use him in the high leverage moments. So I think India would be better off with him. But yeah, here we go. Match factors. So Srinath's match factor is 1.01 and Siraj is 0.88. Well, that's quite interesting. But yeah, as I said, I would definitely pick Srinath over Siraj. And I'm much higher in Siraj than almost anyone else, it seems, at the moment. Master PPV says, baffling comment about Bumrah on a video from yesterday. I quote, 0 major trophies, 0 10-wicket hauls, 0 major match-winning innings, peak in an era where there's only 3 or 4 great batters who are all 35 plus years old. Okay, I didn't see that comment. Thank you for the super chat. Let me quickly break them down. 0 major trophies. Didn't he win the World T20? Hasn't he won the IPL as well? Are we not counting that as a major trophy? I kind of would. 0 10-wicket hauls. Bowlers who bowl in 5-wicket attacks do take fewer 10-wicket hauls. And is it Joel Garner? I think Joel Garner and Shane Warne were not. I know Shane Warne did take a few 10-wicket hauls, but certainly for a player of his talent, and Joel Garner never took one. Joel Garner's an absolute unquestionable all-time great bowler. So yeah, I'm not too worried about 10-wicket hauls. 0 major match-winning innings. I mean, okay. He did play that over against Brody. Peak in an era where there's only 3 or 4 great batters worth all 35 years. That's probably the one I probably would say I think makes most sense. And I've said this about Cummins before as well. Both of those guys kind of missed the shit days of bowling, right? They, the way that Stark and Hazelwood probably did have to bowl a lot more in the 2012 to 2016, 2017 era. I can't remember when Rabada might have bowled in some of that as well, but he would have been at least in South Africa for some of it. So I do think Bumrah and Cummins' records are a little bit inflated by the fact that they've just been bowling in a period where everyone is taking wickets all around the world, right? Like, I think that's fair. Still, no one is taking wickets the way that Bumrah is. So that's why we look at match factor, era factor, and all those sorts of things when we're coming together with individual bowlers. So yeah, I don't know about that comment, but thank you very much for your super chat, my man. Ekant says, how will Boland versus Bazball go in Australia next season? Ekant, great question. I'm absolutely fascinated to see if they will be able to come down the wicket and attack him in the same way in Australia as they did in England because of the extra bounce. We've seen Nitesh play quite well against Boland doing that. I think today India was sort of caught between two modes against him as well, weren't they? When they were like, we really want to come down the wicket. Alex Carey's going to stand up the stumps a lot more. We've seen that so much. I mean, it's one of the great things in the last 2 years of Test cricket, and we barely even talk about it, right? But how much more often wicket keepers are at the stumps is just awesome because it's a great skill. Eek was watching the Test with me last night, and he's like, "Oh my god, how did Carey take that?" And I was like, "That's right. We don't even it's 135 kilometers an hour. It's bouncing and seaming away, and he's taking it perfectly in his gloves." I love watching seamers with keepers up at the stumps. I think it's absolutely awesome. So I think Australia will try that, and England will try and attack him. How he will go, I don't know. How many tests he will play? What Australia's attack will be? There's a lot of questions with that one. Genius says, who does India replace Rohit and Kohli with? That's my entire issue here. It's a big decision for the BCCI. Yeah, I haven't even thought about that. It's a fascinating one. If they both go, who do you make captain? So Gill and Pant have both captained at IPL level. Jaiswal's too young. KL Rahoul's captained, but that would be a weird decision. Who else am I missing in this side? Jadeja probably has captained, but he's not a natural captain. Bumrah, then you've got the same problem that Australia have had with Cummins at times, where he probably has to play an extra test every now and again. But Australia have made it work. So captaincy is hard. Batting is probably easier because there are other options for the middle order. There are, Shubman Gill can either move up to open or move back to bat as well. There is young talent coming through. I don't think there's a massive issue there. There might be a bit of a drop off, although the form that you're only replacing someone at the moment who's averaging what, mid-30s, low 30s. So it's not as if you're replacing him from his peak. So yeah, I think there's plenty of options, but the captaincy one I think is fascinating. Great question. Thank you for the super chat. Hawkeye says, is the Substack free? The Substack, it's actually not a Substack, it's on Ghost, although I probably will be going back to Substack soon. If you're talking about the best of cricket one, yes, sorry, it is free. Completely free. Free. Free as a bird. If you're talking about my one, half of our articles on our one, which is goodareas.co, are paid and half are free. Hawkeye again. I can't stand Harsha Bogle. Too many platitudes and adages in the name of analysis, which is why I'm thankful for finding Jared and Good Areas. Look, Harsha's a friend of mine. I've known Harsha for almost. He was probably one of the first major sort of commentators who would mention my work and get in touch and everything. And if I need him for something, he's always available. I really like Harsha. I think I love Harsha on radio. I think he's brilliant on radio. I think on TV, I don't like him as much. Harsha would be upset at this. Actually, I don't think he would. I think Harsha loves radio as well. It doesn't pay as much though. Trust me, with my bank account, I can promise you it doesn't pay as much. But yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of Harsha. But yeah, we are different, and we are supposed to be different here. That is the thing. So very great you found me. Have you got a picture of Patrick Ewing on as your from Sports Illustrated? Is that right? Well, anyone with a Patrick Ewing picture is a friend of mine. I'll tell you the weirdest Patrick Ewing story. So I was in Jamaica. Might have been when I was with St. Lucia, and I had to do like some scouting or something. I can't remember, but I had a driver, and like this driver would take me around to places, and he was like a driver / security sort of guy helping me out in Kingston. And one of the things I did, I never ended up writing the piece, but I kept talking because I was going to be working for ESPN.com afterwards. I was leaving Cricinfo, becoming an analyst, and was going to work for ESPN.com before it all sort of fell through with them. And one of the pieces I was going to write was about Patrick Ewing's legacy in Jamaica. There's lots of basketball courts in Jamaica, but I never saw anyone playing. And so I kept asking all these people, and I asked about 5 or 7 people. It wasn't that many because at that stage I hadn't got signed up for the new job. But I was keeping notes, and most of them were like, we're proud because he's from Jamaica, but he left here at a young age, and he doesn't come back and do that much with Jamaica. I don't know if any of that's true, but they all said it. And my driver, after about 2 or 3 hours of this, was just like, yeah, we don't give a shit. This is not his words. This is my paraphrasing him. But it was basically, we don't give a shit about Patrick Ewing. You're wasting your time. Anyway. Noah says, can you please talk about Pant in depth? We thought he was a generational talent. He has not performed as such in T20I, ODI, and you said he's not a number 4 batter in Test. Did we overestimate him? Doesn't have to be a number 4. If you've got all-round skill and you can bat 5, 6, 7, you're absolutely great. I don't think there's anything different with Pant that I would have written about him in 2021 or 2020. I was protecting him on that tour early on before he made runs was it the MCG when he first made runs? Go back and have a look at my original, and I was just getting flack and flack. He's an incredible attacking player with brilliant instinct, sees the ball in a way. I love the way he thinks about cricket, but he's a player who plays partly the way he does because he has flaws. Very similar to Adam Gilchrist, right? I think he's a slightly more skillful all-round batter than Adam Gilchrist. But Adam Gilchrist came in his peak. So we never had to see Adam Gilchrist, work out his game the way that we have with Rishabh Pant. T20s, I still don't quite get Rishabh Pant because I think he could be a different player. ODIs, I haven't really thought about him all that much. I still think he's a generational talent. And it depends on how you look at this. If you look at him from a wicket-keeping batting perspective, he's still 100% a generational talent. If you look at him as a specialist batter, you would have to say that this year he's dropped back a little bit. But it's been a tough year, and he was out of the game for a while. I still think he's a fantastic player. Ditya says, South Africa versus Pakistan in this match, a fitting end to one of the most thrilling years in Test cricket. Yeah, it's funny. On our chat, we were talking about we should do a piece about how great Test cricket was this year, and I was like, we've already done that piece. As we could do it again, and I could write something romantic about these last 2 games. It's a real shame I didn't get, I didn't sort of change my timings, but there's only so much daylight in the UK, and it took me a lot longer to put together a basketball hoop than I thought it was going to take me. And so I didn't get the other one. But I think if I had watched it, I think that's what I would have written, a big soppy thing about Test cricket and how wonderful it is and everything else. But again, this has been one of the most fantastic years of Test cricket. I've been covering Test cricket since 2007. And obviously as a fan, watching it really closely since probably 1991. As much as you could in those days. But, following it really closely since 1991. I don't think we've ever had a year like this before. It's been completely mad. So I think Zimbabwe started the game against Afghanistan at 4-1 to win that game and then made 500. It just even little tiny things like that. And the fact that we've now had this explosion of women's Test cricket that is coming up as well. I think if you're a Test cricket fan, I think this is our best ever year. Right? There might have been greater series being played. There might have been high level cricket being played at times. You know, all these other things that you could make. But I think when it comes down to it, I think this is the most entertaining year of Test cricket that we've ever had. And I'd like to thank everyone who's watched our videos, everyone who's commented, everyone who's shared, the Patreon supporters, the Super Chat supporters, our sponsors, for allowing us to do this. Like, I've covered so much of this. We made a big choice this year to sort of go away from the ODI series. I just said to Bayram eventually, look, I will watch some of them, of course, but realistically, I don't care. This is what we want to cover. I want to cover issues within the game, trends within the game, test matches, you know, World Cup, major events, these sorts of things. And then occasionally, if there's a T20 series or a one-day series that one of us has covered that we think has a wider theme, it will do it. It's probably the best time to sort of go with that. It's been less of a politically weird year in Test cricket. In international cricket than we've usually had. I know the Champions Trophy is probably a bit of a throwback, and you know some of the stuff that went on with Bangladesh and Pakistan. But in general, we've actually spoken about the cricket a lot more this year than I feel like I have on previous years, and the cricket's been wonderful. Like, it's just been magic. And I've enjoyed so much of it. And so thank you to all of you for your support with allowing us to make it. EKG Canadian says, here's the possible final World Test Championship outcome. Number one, South Africa. So I think we know South Africa's in now, don't we? Australia, Sri Lanka at 3, India at 4. Or South Africa, Australia, and India at 3. Overall, this is going to be the top 4 best teams. Yeah. I think that's pretty fair, isn't it? Forget England, because who knows what the fuck they're doing when it comes to all this stuff. But I think South Africa have played some really good cricket. Sri Lanka certainly have played some very good cricket. India and Australia, for their occasional hiccups, have played very good cricket as well. And they're probably the 2 most talented teams. And then you would float England in wherever you have to float England in. New Zealand beat India at home, but have had a pretty disappointing run of it, really, haven't they? So yeah, I am, I'm a bit freaked out by the fact that South Africa made the World Test Championship finals with this series against New Zealand that they basically gave up on. But it's a weird tournament that doesn't really exist, and we put it on top of a bunch of bilaterals and then we call it a championship. It's always going to be weird when we do stuff like that. But yeah, I'll still be watching the final. I really enjoy the finals. Ikan says, do India overdo the whole us versus the world thing? I don't really know how to answer that. When you say us versus the world, I don't really know what the narrative that you're trying to get at with that. I mean, India run world cricket, so it's not really them versus the world, is it? They're the most important board by a factor of 20. Look at the whole Champions Trophy thing, where we had to go through months of what we all knew was going to happen for it to happen. The World Cup semi-finals, things like that. I mean, just other teams that isn't going to happen for, right? So yeah, I think. From that perspective, if that's what you're talking about, but I don't really know what you mean by the us versus the world thing. To be honest, every team does this. Most fan bases think that their team is picked on by the umpires, the referees, the administrators, the media, whatever. You're just Indian, so you notice it more. Whereas I think, I assume you're Indian. Yeah, it happens everywhere, being honest. Aleph says, what do you think Sachin, Ponting, and Kellis record would look like against the likes of Cummins, Stark, and Rabada? This is a really interesting question, and the wobble ball. I think Ponting would struggle because I think he pushed at the ball. I think he would bowl the wobble ball wide to him, and it may be a little bit like what's happened to Kohli. Not that the cover drive is as important to Ponting, but I just think he was always pushing at the ball. Sachin, I think Dravid's the one who I think would have done the best, by the way. I know he's not mentioned here. I'd be fascinated with Lara as well. I know you haven't added him there. Sachin, I'm more in the middle of. I think he has a regression, but maybe he's more like Root. I don't know if he goes that far. Callus. Yeah, I would have thought Callus and Sachin would be more like Root. We might not see the decline as much. As I think Ponting, we would definitely see it. But it could be. It's a hard one. It's a great question, actually, but it's a very hard one. And the last one is Triple Stroke says, why has the SCG had so many draws in its history? So Australian wickets, by definition, are batting wickets, right? Through the history of the game. Not the last 5 or so years, but through the history of the game, they're batting wickets. SCG is probably the wicket where it is the hardest to get batters dismissed on. See, Adelaide Oval is more of a batting wicket, but towards the end, it still gets results. The SCG hasn't always been that way. We occasionally see a test like Michael Clark taking wickets at the end, or Alan Border taking wickets at the end. Obviously, Shane Warne and Tiger Bill O'Reilly and those sorts of guys as well. But even the part-timers sometimes. But generally, the SCG is a wicket that can be quite hard to get players out on. So have a look at some of the great overseas knocks, right? Sachin, Dravid have a big one there. But Laxman certainly did. I'm trying to think of some of the others. But some really big, epic overseas knocks by players there. I think it's the wicket that overseas players feel the most confident on. Also, traditionally, it's the wicket that's spun, but it's never spun like an Asian wicket or anything, right? Until it gets right to the end sometimes, as I was saying before. So it's a good play. It's a good match to... It's a good pitch to bat on, so it's going to have more draws. And I think it's specifically, I've always thought of it as a tough wicket to get a tough pitch to get wickets on. So I would probably put those two things together. Tessia says, get the sense when Bumrah retires, India go back to something resembling the teams of the past. Great batters, ostensibly, not quite sure. Average bowlers. I mean, in Asia, Akshar, Kuldeep, Washington is a pretty good second, third, fourth best spinners. So I don't have any issue with their bowling in Asia. I get your point away from Asia. Prashant Krishna still has a huge ceiling. He really does. Whether we, it's all well and good for us to say that. Billy Stanlake had one of the highest ceilings I've ever seen in a bowler. And, he didn't make it, right? Like, having a high ceiling doesn't mean that you match it. So Prashant Krishna, Arshdeep, I don't think is going to be a great bowler. Obviously, Mayank Yadav is the real wild card at the moment because he looks like he could be anything. Again, a massively high ceiling. Might never play. Wouldn't be the first fast bowler that we've said that about, right? And we never saw that much of them. So I think there's a few. So there are talents out there, I suppose, is what I would say. It's not like I'm looking at it going, there's no one there. But I get your point as well, that it's not just Bumrah, it's Bumrah and Shami. You don't want Siraj to be the leader of an attack. There isn't an obvious leader unless Mayank Yadav comes from absolutely nowhere. And Mayank Yadav, as good as he looks, is not going to be much different than, Nasim Shah, or I've completely forgotten the young quick Nahid Rana from Bangladesh, or the West Indian, the guy from Guyana, Shimar Joseph. Right, in that the ceiling could be massively high, but they might be very raw for a long period of times, and it will take a while for them to come on board. But yeah, I get your point, and it's very possible. Ikan says, how much cricket have you watched in the last week? I don't think in the last week I've watched more than normal. Have I? I'm not in a situation where I would ever look at how much cricket I watch because I think it would terrify me. During a lot of the year, I will have multiple screens on during a game. So I've done a little bit of that, watching some of the limited overs games, some of the women's games, West Indies women's games. I didn't watch the Sri Lanka New Zealand game today, but I did think about it. I watched some of the South Africa Pakistan. I watched more of South Africa Sri Lanka. Maybe the time zones were better for that one because these tests have all been at slightly different times in Australia, haven't they? No, I'm always watching it. I'm always following something. Like, was it last week? What was I watching last week? Oman, UAE, and UAE. Oh, UAE, Kuwait. Was it that game? Was that the fantastic one, or was it the Oman one? So yeah, look, I'm watching what I can find at all times. That's what I do. That's why I'm here. That's why you pay me the super chats. Thank you very much, Ekant, and everyone else for their super chats today. Thank you to Varun for putting that graphic up by accident. Again, embarrassing yourself. Oh, wait, I've got another one. Oh, Varun. Who's better, Shami versus Zahir Khan? Can you please check their match factors for both Test and ODIs? No, I don't know if this is the day for this. This feels like a wagon wheel one. Because now you've got Varun as we were on our way out. Just looking it up. Let's have a look. He can't do it, can he? Oh, Varun. Look at him. You can probably he's stressing out. I should put him on the screen. He's turned his camera off, so I can't do that. Who's better, Shami versus Zahir Khan? I love Zahir Khan, so I don't want to think anyone's better than him. I would have thought that Shami had him beat. Oh, it's close. I'm assuming that's for Test cricket. Let's just stop there, Varun. Very, very close. I could see that. They're both fantastic bowlers. You probably pick Zahir Khan because it's easy to find a new ball bowler, and because Zahir Khan was so good with reverse and bowling on flat wickets. So I think even though the match factor is slightly higher for Shami, you might still pick Zahir Khan ahead of him. Although then you've got Bumrah, so maybe you don't need it. I don't know. I would always defer to the bowlers who are with the old ball, unless you're talking about like a Hadley or McGrath, who takes so many wickets at the top that it doesn't matter if you have old ball bowlers because you've got Hadley and McGrath. Anyway, I don't know how we finish this off with Hadley and McGrath. Still upset that that my 200-1 bet on a tie didn't come through in this Test match. Thank you to everyone for supporting us again. You're not going to be shocked at this. We're going to be back for the scoreboard in the next Test match. We'll also do some Morning Glory shows. Thank you to everyone for their support and for their support this year. There's still more shows. In fact, me and Bayram will probably be doing a couple more podcasts today. But this is it for the scoreboard for this year. Thank you very much to everyone, especially to everyone behind the scenes as well, to Muku, Rakshit, Shubu, Shayan, Varun. Trying to think if anyone else works on the scoreboard, but all those people, there's a lot of work that goes into these, and for people like Varun and I working through the night and everything, and some of the other team working in the early morning, it sucks ass, but we love it and we'll continue to do it. And just a huge shout out to all of our sponsors as well, Hit Wicket for coming on board, and the Best of Cricket as well, and also Sally. But that's it for us for now, and we'll see you again very soon. I mean, I will literally see you in a few hours. Cricket media used to be pretty simple. Find your favourite newspaper, head to Cricinfo, and maybe a blog you'd like. Now just finding the best stories and writing is a huge challenge. You already have a job. You just want to read about cricket. Well, that is what the Best of Cricket is currently doing. They go out daily to find the newest cricket coverage and the best stories from any publication in the world. And when they can't discover what they want, they also hire some of the best writers to produce their own great stories. You can get the Best of Cricket via their website or on WhatsApp. They find cricket's best stories and give them to you every day.